The sharp bugs demonstrated their ferociousness with swift attacks and their disgusting slime. A training the pink hair was valiantly saved by Gary, who sliced down some bugs. This young girl is training to become a knight, but she's freaked out by the blood of bugs. As these monsters appear in swarms, Gary led the trainees to disembark from the cart and increase their vigilance. Gary, Ray, Sylvia, Dan, and the other red-haired Kyle were the first ones to compose themselves and face the swarm. Gary ordered them to form groups of 3 in the open area to strengthen their defenses. Energetic Kyle charged into the fray, challenging everyone to a contest of who could kill the most sharp bugs. Ray secretly activated his dragon's eye, wondering why these trainees were getting so excited. They collaborated in groups and effectively mowed down the enemies. Some of them killed tens of these bugs. However, these are all just beginner rank magical beasts, so Ray couldn't care less. But something else caught his attention that the other trainees probably did not notice. Up on the cliffs were the 6 knights who had left the group earlier. They were quietly observing the battlefield. Now that he saw what was going on, Ray decided to return to the carriage in boredom, much to Dan's annoyance. After all, these were all weak beasts. His classmates could probably survive on their own. He really said, "I'm too strong for this sheep." Right now, he'll just take this chance to get some peaceful sleep. The knight, Lancey, evaluated that Ray could only achieve something known as a red belt. The knights thought that he got scared. On the contrary, Gary was receiving praise for his decisive attacks and for controlling his body with no wasted movements. The knights assessed that he would probably earn a white belt. Another trainee had also caught their eye for her presence of mind and perfect stance. It was, of course, none other than Sylvia with her deadly blade. Every time a sharp bug entered her killing range, she reacted masterfully. Every beast fell with a single, perfectly timed counter-slash. A single opening spelled the end for her opponents. She was a smart and steady fighter overall. Things had been going well for the trainees until something emerged from the depths of the ground into the middle of the field. This caused a menacing rumble, a beast that resembled the sharp bugs they had been fighting the whole time. It turns out that sharp bugs can merge with each other to become a different level of monstrosity. The appearance of this fearsome beast threw the earlier confidence of the trainees out of the window. There are a few who stepped up in times of trouble, and one of those would be the red-haired Ian. With his raw strength alone, he ripped through the giant sharp bug to protect his comrades. The twins also demonstrated their skills with their blades. These two are a cut above the rest. Meanwhile, Kyle has been enjoying slaughtering these bugs with amazing efficiency and a smile on his face. Observing the trainees, it seems like there's no need for the knights to step up. The red-haired kids are standing out in their own ways, but Ray stood out for the wrong reasons. It did not take too long for the kids to take care of business despite the urgency and surprise. After the battle, Ian went to the side of the other trainees to make sure they're alright. Not only is he physically strong, but he also genuinely cares for his teammates. He's a gem, a perfect knight. And compared to Ian's valiant effort, Ray is out here stretching after his peaceful nap inside the carriage while Gary is scolding him for not helping. It seems like the identity of the child of prophecy is still a mystery at this point. After the battle, the caravan continued its way to its destination. Kyle is boasting that he killed the most sharp bugs out of every trainee here. He and Dan are thinking that magic beasts are not that tough after all. He also commented that if they are lucky, they could get a white belt based on their performance here alone. Gary had no clue what this white belt thing was. Ray, on the other hand, is extending his beauty sleep as much as possible. It turns out that even after becoming a knight, every personnel would still be ranked differently. For example, the knights that are supervising this trip are the White Tassel Protectors. They are the highest ranked knights in the academy. In their careers, they've earned the coveted white belts at one point. That means that their skills as knights have been recognized through rigorous tests and trials. There are also green and black belt knights, symbolizing different skills and specialties, but the lowest ranked among the knights are the red belts. The people who do not do well in tests can only get this one. White belt trainees will not only be given personal instructors, but also abundant resources and rewards as well. But on the other side of the spectrum, red belts are an unlucky bunch. They will only get basic training, and no one would pay attention to them. They can honestly do whatever they want since the academy has practically given up on their potential. Hearing this was quite eye-opening for Ray. If red belts can do whatever they want, he would have all the time in the world to hunt magic beasts to grind beast crystals and abilities quickly. And that solidified his goal in this prestigious knight academy. He will do his best to get a red belt. Seeing the glorious banners displayed on the tall walls of the garrison, the caravan had finally arrived at their destination. The gates alone looked like 100 stories tall in the eyes of the trainees. This overwhelming sight is the prestigious Avrian Knight Academy itself. Beyond the Great Walls is a place so massive and impressive that it does not look like an academy at all. Of course, they'd heard about this place before, but seeing it with their own eyes for the first time is just a different experience. The entire academy is actually a whole city where every citizen is a knight. Their energy source comes from mana crystals placed all over the place. Not a single torch is used for lighting. It's as luxurious as it is prestigious. It is a vastly different world compared to the small village that Gary and Ray grew up in. Sir Lancey reminded them to follow closely for the tour to not get lost. They would have the chance to wander around later anyways. Their first stop is the armory, where every staff treats Sir Lancey with the utmost respect. The next one is the library, so they must shut their mouths and keep quiet. It looks like Sir Lancey is quite popular with the Lady Knights. As for the librarians, they are bona fide knights too. All graduates of the Avrian Knight Academy are required to volunteer in the city for 2 years. Then they will be allowed to either stay or leave. Their last stop is one of the most important spots in the academy. Before everyone heads to their dorms, they must visit this one. The trainees are either scared or confused because, based on the tombstones, this is a cemetery. But something else caught Ray's attention. In this place, the remains of the knights who have fought and died for the Allure Kingdom rest. They'd have come here to be reminded that the war has never ended. Every trainee must remember that as valiant knights of the kingdom, their first duty is to fight and protect their home. Of course, every trainee was moved by that speech and answered affirmatively in unison, except Ray. He was reminded of his hate for humans at this burial site. He trembled in rage and could barely contain his boiling emotions. These puny humans dared to use the bodies of his dragon brethren as materials to make their armor and weapons. Sylvia raised her hand and respectfully asked who these imposing sculptures were made after. These figures represent the founders of the Avrian Knight Academy. They were dubbed as the legendary Dragon Knights. Intrigued, Ray asked what exactly these Dragon Knights were. The annoyed Sir Lancey just dismissed his question, as the trainees would know this stuff after studying the Academy's history. Beefing with a literal child is crazy. This raised Ray's anger even further as his blessing of the dragon's eye manifested out of his control. This led him to notice something even more peculiar on this site. As the tour concludes, Gary is worried that Ray is standing still and acting differently. Thanks to his dragon's eye activation, he started seeing something truly incomprehensible. Below one of the tombstones, there was a massive hole going deep into the earth, and there was something in there. Upon further inspection, he started seeing that the thing below that hole was alive. Now that the tour is finally done, everyone scattered to find their dorms. Gary is excited for this new chapter in his life, while Ray is lost in thought about what he just saw earlier. It puzzled him even more because not even magical beasts would have that sort of presence. Noticing that he's lost in his own thoughts, Gary finally snapped him out of it. Thankfully, the two of them happened to be assigned to the same dorm. As for who would be their other dormmates, a particular trainee they are acquainted with is listed on the door. Much to her surprise, Sylvia is assigned to the same room as the boys. Gary explained that it's not really all that surprising, considering that the Academy has always treated everyone equally regardless of gender, reassuring her that they're nice at least. In response, she just threw her heavy bag at him. She clearly does not like the idea of sleeping in the same room as them. She stormed off, throwing a fit as she headed to the officials to change dorms. At the same time, their other dormmates arrived at the scene. They would be rooming with Monk and the gentle giant, Ian. Ray eyed his fellow red-haired freak intensely. It looks like they have 2 more roommates, Dan and someone called Marcia Woodward. A name that somehow sounds familiar to Ray. It did not take too long for Sylvia to storm back downstairs in a poorer mood. She was forced to grab her bag back. He warned the boys that she would be changing clothes. With murder in her eyes, she certainly warned them not to come in. Just as Gary expected, the administration did not allow her to change dorms after all. Finally, Dan arrived, and Gary welcomed the guy with open arms. He then went on to tell Dan that they found a big cockroach inside the room and were looking for someone to deal with it. The thing is, Dan is a big show-off. Everyone watched as he stormed into the room, ready to deal with a measly cockroach. A brief moment of silence washed over everyone on the other side of the door. A scream of horror and shock echoed in the halls. A sign of a perfectly executed prank.
Sensational.
Gary and Monk laughed. Ray was speechless at this devious stunt, and poor Ian's pure heart could not take it. A few moments later, it's now lunchtime at the massive dining hall of the Academy. Dan is worried that now that he's pissed off the walking gunpowder, Sylvia, she might kill him in his sleep or something. Gary and Ray are barely paying attention to the poor guy while they wolf down everything on their plates. They were talking about Sylvia as if she's not sitting right in front of them. She could not even believe that everyone is eating carelessly as if they are not going to be tested soon. The test for the night belts is coming up, but Gary and Ray could care less. For the duo, free food is all that matters. She could only sigh in defeat against their appetite. And that's when a pair of smug trainee knights went to their table to mock them for eating like beasts, as expected of poor country bumpkins with no manners. They then laugh at them, expecting that this group would be crying to their mommies after a few meals in this institution. They made their way towards the docile Ian, mocking his large size and how much space he takes up. But these smug fools made their biggest blunder. They dared to mock the red-haired freaks out of Rennie. The always cheerful Kyle paused his lunch. One of the twins is ready to kill as he raises his blade covertly, but the calmer twin did not deem it worthy. The smug bullies continued to insult them for being country bumpkin freaks until Monk decided to stand up for his roommate. This only shifted the target onto him. He was mercilessly trash-talked while Ian tried to de-escalate the situation. Seeing this as a sign of weakness, the scoundrel told Ian to take the long way around if they see each other in the future. But out of nowhere, a flying chicken leg zoomed through the air. It smacked the smug son of a gun right in the face with impressive force. This, of course, angered the imbecile, cursing out whoever humiliated him in front of everyone to come out. To his surprise, the culprit would not only show himself but would also plant the guy's face into the table. Ray twisted the moron's arm in a lock while asking him who he was trash-talking. The guy could not take the hint and called Ray a disgusting red-haired monster. Unfortunately, a nosy trainee tattled to the officials, and the hateful Sir Lancey was the first to notice the commotion. Ian saw Ray's murderous eyes and tried his best to stop the situation from getting out of hand. They can't make a ruckus here with all the knights watching, and with the tests fast approaching, this would affect their impression of Ray, but he could not care less. The other moron continued to badmouth Ray from a distance while crying for the knights to save his moron partner from Ray's violence. Sir Lancey went up to the table and ordered Ray to release the half-wit. Ray should just take them 2 versus 1. While the moron cried out for the knights' help, Ray wanted to teach Ian something he had learned growing up about people who treat others like trash. Sir Lancey remained firm and officially ordered Ray Talon to stop his actions immediately. You see, the only way to deal with these people is to show them the consequences of their actions, and sometimes force is necessary. As the fool cried in pain with his arm, the other trainees watched in horror. Ray knew better than anyone that people only learn when you teach them a lesson. But this earned him the anger of Sir Lancey for not following explicit orders. He retorted that he just had hearing problems like Lancey himself. He also only hears what he wants to.
Emotional, damn it!
He then went back to his seat with Gary to continue eating, not letting those pieces of trash affect his appetite. After seeing Ray do that to the bullies, the surrounding whispers quietly praised him. This further infuriated the knight. Right now, he had his eyes officially set on Ray. As lunch in the halls continued, the 3 commanders arrived on the scene. With the arrival of these 3, whispers of anticipation about the test began to spread. Sir Winford silenced everyone with a wave of his hand and an order to be quiet. He then welcomed the heads of the academy, the 6 elders themselves. With the appearance of these masked figures, it seemed like the test was a big deal this time around. In the history of the academy, no one had heard of the 6 elders watching the test before. Using his dragon's eye, Ray analyzed these 6 people. And the only thing he was certain of was that these elders were way too strong. They gave him the menacing vibe of the humans that ultimately ended his previous life. That means that the elders of this academy can probably go toe-to-toe with dragons. Today, they would be serving as witnesses as the testing of the new knight to be commenced. According to the results of this test, every trainee would be given belts of different colors. As everyone had heard before, if you didn't do well, you would get a red belt. This essentially meant that you had failed in a sense. But today, Sir Winford wanted to throw that stigma out of the window. Getting a red belt would not stop anyone from standing where he stands today. Every single one of these trainees had been painstakingly selected for their potential since they were 5 years old. The future training would help them hone their talents, so Sir Winford pleaded with everyone not to give up on themselves. As Ray expected, the noble knight was as positive and encouraging as ever. He wondered how the guy would react when he ultimately got a red belt. After that moving speech, he would then leave the rest to Lancey. Sir Lancey swore to fulfill his duties as best as he could while explicitly shooting a furious glare at Ray. They need to take this guy's license or something. The examination consists of 5 different stages testing various aspects of a knight's overall ability. The first one is a test of raw strength, involving pushing a massive boulder known as the Stone of Power. Next is the challenge against the roaring flames of the blazing inferno. The third stage involves the stealthy navigation of an undetected passage. For the 4th stage, they must undergo a test of accuracy in the eye of precision. Finally, there's a measure of a knight's values in the pursuit of truth. After that rundown, everyone transferred to the venue for the first stage, where the Stone of Power challenge will commence. It's a massive coliseum adorned with magic stones on the sides. The rules are simple. They need to push a big rock to the goal position. Once it reaches the goal, the stage is considered successful. Each participant will have 2 chances, and if they fail in first attempt, they can choose to use a pair of magic gloves on the second try. These gloves increase strength and assist in passing the stage, but participants must keep in mind that it will affect their evaluation. This simple strength test appears easy for Gary and Ray. However, Ray has already noticed that someone doesn't want him to succeed. Speaking of the devil, Sir Lancey has something to announce before they begin. As the proctor of this test, he wants to formally reject Ray Talon's participation.
Are you serious right now, bro?
This was well within Ray's expectations, but his friends protested this decision. Lancey intends to use this situation as a warning for all trainee knights, insisting that they must follow any orders given by superiors above all else. If anyone objects to his decision, they are free to report him to his superiors. And if ordered to retract it, he will comply without objections. Putting that aside, the first test finally starts. Now that it's clear that Lancey is targeting him, Sylvia wants to appeal to the higher-ups. However, Ray doesn't want to do so, making things easier for him. He'll just join everyone in the next stage. Right from the start, he's certain that he will be guaranteed the lowest red belt, but Sylvia is genuinely worried for Ray. The test goes on, and Gary passes while gritting his teeth. Sylvia also manages to pass on her second try with the help of the magic gloves. However, Ian is in a league of his own, easily lifting the rock when he only needed to push it. Ray congratulates Gary for passing, but he knows that the second stage will likely be a tough challenge for him. These foreboding words from Ray unnerve Gary. Looking at the proctor of the second stage, the old man appears to be from the Roland Magic Academy. When it comes to magic, they have never even touched the subject. But Ray knows that the battlefield does not care whether you've learned something or not. He guesses that they have to try resisting magic, and usually, physically strong people have worse magic resistance. Based on his assumption, the Academy is trying to test their weaknesses and strengths through these 5 tests to find the best way to develop their abilities. If that's the case, Gary is hoping for the possibility that he's an all-rounded genius, but that's highly unlikely. And so, the second stage, Blazing Inferno, starts with Gary going up first. Under the spell of the proctor, he lasts 57 seconds. Ray praised his buddy for lasting reasonably long, but Gary was disappointed that he did not even last a full minute, even though a minute is equivalent to an hour inside the illusion. Next up on the block is none other than Sylvia as the proctor started her test. She maintained mental clarity with the knowledge that everything she's experiencing is just an illusion. Even though her clothes had been burned in the illusion, she stood firm. It's already been 5 minutes, and she's still holding strong. She's leagues ahead of the second place. Now that she's proven how resilient she is against magic, she became the talk of the town for the other trainees. Next up on the chopping block is Ray, and Sylvia gave him a quick good luck before undergoing the test. The proctor prepared to start the test while he formulated that 20 seconds should be about enough. But a much better bet would be giving up immediately. From the stands, his bright red hair stood out. He entered the illusory world and waited for the incoming trial. But he was surprised to see what exactly this trial entailed. He was facing an image of a fearsome red dragon. It enveloped him with a blazing flame as he wondered why he was facing himself from his past life. In an interesting turn of events, the test sent both Ray and the proctor flying in opposite directions. Even the knights in the stands were shocked to see this development. The elders quietly watched and observed the bizarre event taking place. The proctor then started screaming that Ray was cursed, that he had been cursed by the red dragon. The trainees heard this crazy old man's words, and it changed the way they saw Ray for the worse. Sir Winford assured Ray that the old man is all right and that he should rest up too. But this is truly strange. This established mage's mana has been completely drained, but that doesn't make sense. He reported to the elder that it's just a mana disorder caused by excessive mana use. But the elders know that a renowned mage from Roland should not be drained to this extent after just a test of this degree. Now that the mage is resting, Winford suggested having another mage take the proctor role for the remaining tests, and the elder agreed. As Sir Winford takes his leave, that same elder silently ordered an armored knight. The armored knight assured the elder that the task will be done immediately. This old man is rocking that COVID-19 drip, complete with the mask and all. He is intrigued by the young man known as Ray Talon. The boys do not know what the hell a mana disorder is. Sylvia had to explain that it happens to mages who drain their mana but forcefully cast magic anyway. Ray just attributed his unlucky streak to being a genius. Geniuses always have it hard after all. But even Sylvia knows that a prominent mage from Roland should not make such an elementary mistake. And there's also the thing about the curse. But as the three were minding their business hanging out together, the ground started to shake with rigorous rumbling. Suddenly, sounds of something coming out of the ground echoed throughout the Colosseum. Amidst the earthquake, massive tree trunks started to protrude up into the field. When the rumbling slowed, the onlookers were greeted with the sight of a massive forest. It was conjured up by a powerful hooded mage. This is the extent of what magic can do. Covering the entire testing area with greenery is no joke. Meanwhile, inside the thick forest made of magic, the trainees are confused as to what was happening. That was until someone stepped into the scene, perched atop one of the tall trees. This person notified the trainees that the third stage starts now. This hooded and masked figure introduced himself as the proctor of the third stage. All they have to do is follow him and replicate his movements as best as they can. This is the start of the third trial, the undetected passage. The proctor vanished in a blink of an eye to signal the start of the third test. This test is giving off Naruto vibes. They are suddenly starting, and no one has digested what's happening yet. Rei was impressed by the proctor's speed. Monk was the first one to react and jumped into the trees. Rei and Gary followed suit, excited to demonstrate their speed in the familiarity of the woods. Sylvia also jumped into the chase, leaving only one person behind. Dan was the slowest to react out of all of them. He's still at the starting point while everyone else is accelerating already. After a few moments of no one catching up to him, the proctor started to think that he's going too fast for the kids. As he was about to stop and wait to adjust his pace, he looked behind and saw a pleasant surprise. It was Monk at the forefront, easily traversing through the branches with Gary, Rei, and Sylvia close behind. Seeing the trainees slowly catching up to him, the proctor deemed that there was no need to take it easy after all. He went ahead of them, taunting the trainees to catch up if they could. But as they passed a certain point, we saw 5 arrows loaded up into one bow, lying in wait. As time went on, Rei acknowledged that he was not that good when it came to traversing the woods like this. He was running out of stamina fast because he preferred moving with all 4 of his limbs for comfort and speed. Suddenly, those arrows were unleashed upon the trainees as soon as they got in range. Rei was the first one to sense the incoming attacks from the shadows. He warned the kids ahead of him to look out for the incoming arrows. Thanks to that warning, everyone managed to stop their charge before falling victim to the trap. The woman wielding the bow complained that there were too many kids that had passed the first part of the exam proctored by the masked man. She taunted the kids to not just stand there and lose to the masked man, also that they should each grab a bow. She blended into the background with a declaration that their next test started now. It seemed like they would be undergoing the third and fourth stages at the same time. They would be tested on their accuracy with a bow. They did not take too long to prepare for the next part. Targets had been set up in the forest ahead. They would pass the test after getting 3. But of course, they had to do so under the 4th proctor's constant interference. This was the 4th stage of the night exam, the Eye of Precision. The 4th proctor can low-key catch this arrow, if you know what I'm saying. Rei was still aiming to get a red belt, but he did not want to come in last place either, so he decided to activate his dragon's eye to show off just a little bit. But thanks to that eye of his, he saw the trajectory of his special arrow zooming through the air with deadly force. At first, he was confused because this was supposed to be a harmless test. The arrow was headed straight for Gary, so he pushed his friend away while yelling at him to watch out. Now that he's pushed Gary away from harm, it dawns on him that he can't dodge this incoming attack. Thankfully, its trajectory was deflected by another arrow coming in from a different angle. That special arrow did not lose any momentum and lodged itself into a nearby tree forcefully. No matter how you look at it, that one was too strong for just a simple test. Their clutch savior came right up to them to make sure that they were all right. It was a young lady trainee carrying her bow with finesse. She's a great shot, but she's also modest when praised. Before they could exchange more words, another batch of arrows came right at them. They started adjusting to the speed and easily dodging the shots, but something is not quite right. The one that came at them just now was enveloped with chi. Unlike the test arrows from the proctor, someone really is trying to kill them, or maybe they just want to kill Rei specifically. From a covered angle in the woods, the sound of another arrow being pulled back can be heard, but this one is not coming from the proctor. She and Rei were the only ones to hear that unsettling pull. Now that he knows where the attacks are coming from, Rei prepares to retaliate with his own bow, but he pulls on the arrow so hard that the bow starts to crack. Unable to withstand his power anymore, the wooden bow finally snaps under his forceful grip. He might have been too hyped to unleash his own ranged attack. You gotta stick with swords, my boy. Now that the proctor has caught on to what was happening, she releases a chi-powered arrow herself. It is easily dodged by the mysterious figure running through the covers of the woods. She investigates the signs left by the intruder, but there are 0 signs to follow. To be able to dodge her all attack without leaving a trace behind is crazy. Someone powerful is hunting down her students. She takes her arrow back from being lodged into one of the giant trees. She does not want the trainees to panic, so she casually reasons that one of her shots went astray and they should just continue the test. Rei knows that this proctor clearly didn't shoot that arrow. She's just trying to reassure them. They went ahead, but Rei kept his guard up now that someone extremely dangerous managed to sneak into the woods. The test wrapped up a few minutes later. It seems like everyone had decent results this time around. Sylvia was shocked to learn that something grave had just happened to Rei and Gary in that forest. As always, she wanted to go and report the incident to the knights, but Rei wanted to keep this one under wraps. Gary is on the same page too. The proctor didn't tell them the truth. That might mean she was trying to reassure them, but she might also be trying to hide something. If someone is really trying to cause them harm, that person must be someone who'd enter the venue unnoticed. That means the identity of the assailant is limited to a very small pool. It might be a proctor or maybe a related knight. I personally got my eyes on that rat, Lancy. As for how they would proceed from here, Rei wants to stay still to see how it goes. He's deadly curious about who's the moron targeting them. They go over the edge of the conjured forest and into one of the Colosseum's exits where the intruder made his landing. The 4th proctor managed to catch up and stop the man from making his covert exit. She angrily asked the assailant why he's targeting her new students. At their close distance, she's confident that she can shoot this man down on the spot if she needs to. But if that is the case, the intruder with a scar on his eye has no other choice. There's nothing more to say as he chooses to face her chi-enforced arrow with his blade. A scarlet crystal illuminated the surroundings under the dark skies of the Colosseum. This gem, attached to this sword, will be used to test the trainee's willpower and chi manipulation. The 5th and final stage of the examination is starting. The Will of Truth and the hateful Sir Delbert will be the final proctors. The sword in front of them is made from an Ultra Beast crystal from a firebird. It releases flames when held. The trainees have not learned how to use chi yet, so they will be relying on pure willpower. Sir Delbert called for the first student to come up. It was Ian who would be trying out first. He anxiously held the blade, waiting for it to react to his will. It then suddenly ignited into a massive flame that caught him by surprise, shocking even Delbert. It might be an impressive fire, but control does not seem to be there. Meanwhile, on the other side of the academy, someone is receiving a report from the assailant in the woods. It was someone called Elder Gibby. He did not seem to mind the intruder's negative report, knowing that their issue is quite complicated. He donned a golden mask to change his appearance in just a second. Their interference in the exam has undoubtedly sent a signal to their followers. A signal that tells them that the Pureblood Guild has never disappeared. Imagine using a shape-shifting mask to look like a creepy old man. That couldn't be me. Back in the final test, it was now Gary's turn, and he managed to conjure up a glorious and formidable flame. Now, Rei is up next, so Gary gave him a high five and wished him good luck. Sylvia went up to Gary to ask about something that's been on her mind. She wants to know if Rei is actually really strong. With Gary being the closest to Rei, at least to his knowledge, Rei is extremely strong. He stood by this evaluation despite the kid's abysmal test results and even after winning against Rei in spars. That's because of what happened 10 years ago. He recounted the story of how he was attacked by an intermediate-ranked demonic wolf, where Rei saved him and defeated the beast. Dad did not take this story seriously, as he thinks it would be an impossible feat for a 5-year-old boy to do that at the time. He thinks it's probably just some ordinary big wolf. But Sylvia was not that quick to dismiss that story. If Rei really was that strong, then she's clueless as to why he would hide his real abilities. Now that it's Rei's turn to go up to the stage and use his will on the blade, his cute draconic avatar appeared. As soon as he touched the hilt, he was prompted with the option to absorb the treasured ultra-grade beast crystal.
It's free. Real estate.
Given that the crystal immediately lost its scarlet luster, it's evident what option Rei had gone with. He feigned ignorance while swinging the sword with no flames at all, surprising even Sir Delbert. Realizing what was happening, the knight shoved Rei away in a panic while he checked the sword. The weapon created from an ultra-grade beast crystal, a treasure of the Elder Kingdom, has lost its power. He instantly grabbed Rei, blaming the trainee for whatever happened to the sword, but he just shrugged it off and continued to act clueless. He even called out this moron for staring at him like crazy since he went up to take the test. As the situation escalates, an armored knight hurriedly went up to the stage with an urgent report. Whatever that whispered report was, it evidently shook Sir Delbert to his core. He then signaled the end of the tests, and the trainees can return to their rooms now. Their long day is finally wrapped up. They are to gather at dinner time to be assigned their belts. Contrary to the other trainees, Ray doesn't look relieved. Sir Delbert dismissed him while his mind was still reeling. Due to his super-sensitive hearing, he heard everything that the armored knight reported to Sir Delbert. He was being notified that the proctor of the 4th test was just found dead. When the knights and Sir Winford found her, she was already mangled using a blade. Her body is still warm, so it hasn't been very long since she passed. They have no clue as to who in the world the culprit is. Winford took charge and assigned the other knights to report the matter to the elders with haste. In the elder meeting room, the leaders of the academy have been briefed about the death of the 4th proctor at the hands of a skilled assailant. All evidence points to it being a possible internal case concerning certain groups. This could be the work of either the Pureblood Guild or the Dark Guild. Either way, the death of the captain of the green-belted knights must be thoroughly investigated. As they cannot decide on the next course of action, the elders turn to the head elder for advice. The head elder wanted to contain this incident within these doors while the knight captains conduct the investigation. Meanwhile, the time for the bestowment of ranks is approaching, and every trainee is anxious about the color of their belt. It turns out that their other lady doormate is the one who saved them with an arrow earlier, Martha Woodwork, daughter of Anne Woodwork. Ray is still distracted by the death of the 4th proctor right within the academy's confines. The culprit could only be a commander or an elder. If you can remember the adventurer they saved on their way to Rennie years ago, that woman was Martha's mother. Gary noticed that this kid has had his head in the clouds an awful lot lately, thinking about everything that happened in the test. Ray thinks it's best not to tell them about the killing to avoid any more unnecessary danger. Throughout the 5 tests, even Sylvia noticed that unusual events surrounded Ray. At that moment, the knight commanders have finally arrived. Every trainee in the large hall fell silent with nervousness and anxiety about their ranks. Here and now, they will be handed their knight belts. Everyone must come up as they hear their name. First up on the list is none other than our boy, Gary Blueblood. Whispers of praise regarding his outstanding performance surrounded him. He did the best overall out of everyone. They grow up so fast. One could argue that Sylvia did better, but regardless, she and Gary would probably receive the highest ranks. However, upon careful consideration by the knights, Gary was awarded a black belt. This gave him quite a surprise, knowing that he had produced the best results in the tests. Before he could even appeal, Sir Winford simply handed him the belt with a smile. He was visibly disappointed not to receive the highest accolade on the belt lineup. Even the other trainees thought that he should have gotten a white belt. Besides, no one even knows what black belts do. Next was Ian. He easily earned a white belt with his monstrous strength and big heart. The goddess of their batch, Sylvia, also received a white belt, while Dan got the lowest, a red belt. Martha was assigned to the green belts, and even Monk received a black belt. After everyone had their assignments, it was now time for Ray's. Everyone was certain that he would get a red one, of course. He strode through the hall and onto the stage to get his belt. After careful deliberation by the knights, he was also awarded a black belt. Now it's official that Dan is the only trash red belt in their dorm. Even with Ray performing so poorly, he was falling deeper into despair with the knowledge that he's the weakest here. No one was more confused about Ray receiving a black belt than Ray himself. He reckoned that there might be a conspiracy behind this. All the belts had been given out, and the results were final no matter what. Starting tomorrow, they would be undergoing training from different knights according to their belts. While everyone was still clueless about their black belts, a man with a very familiar scar could be seen not far from the trainees. He was looking at his chart, where every black belt was listed, including 2 redheads, Kyle and Ray. He just hoped that they wouldn't get him into trouble. After all, they would be the future Dragon Knights. Bro is a literal Dragon Knight already. The next day came, and everyone arrived at the training grounds, including Ray, Kyle, Gary, and Monk, the new black belt inductees. They were getting impatient that their instructor hadn't shown up yet. They could only hope that the guy was at least normal. After saying that out loud, their instructor finally arrived to hear their complaints. From now on, this chain-smoking, scar-faced, and carefree guy would be their instructor. They awkwardly walked behind him without a word, creating a very tense atmosphere. Kyle broke the silence by asking the others if the instructor even mentioned his name at all. So, without any hesitation, the outgoing and straightforward Red Baldy asked the knight how they should address him. The guy casually waved and introduced himself as K, just K. As they were making their way to their destination, they accidentally ran into the hateful Sir Delbert by coincidence. He pitied K for having 2 red hairs in his lineup. He then turned his attention to Ray, telling him that he would not even be inside this academy if it were personally up to him. Ray would not back down against this clown, though. Just a little clapback from the kid visibly angered the clown, threatening Ray that he would be keeping his eye on him. But that kind of threat would not fly anymore, as Sir Delbert barely dodged a blade coming at him. With a puff of smoke, Kay wanted to make something clear from now on. Ray Talon is now a member of the Black Belted Knights. It wouldn't be good if they let discrimination cause bad blood between factions. Kay is low-key a ride or die for the Black Belt Dragon Knights. But this clown just would not stop running his mouth, thinking that Ray is a scourge or something. He insisted that everyone will find out that the prophecy is wrong sooner or later. Delbert the clown was then forced to retreat to his hidey hole with a scowl. As for the prophecy that he was yapping about, the kids had never even heard of it. But Kay could already feel a headache coming his way at this rate. He had just instructed everyone to follow him. They finally arrived at the place where they would be having special training every day from now on. Right as the entrance was opened, an ominous wind greeted them with a foreboding feeling, so intense that even opening their eyes was difficult. Their vision slowly adjusted to the dark feeling inside, and they finally saw what the place was. It was so decrepit to the point of ruin, with thick dust and cobwebs all over the place. They went inside, and Sir Kay immediately vanished. No one even noticed how and when he disappeared. To add to their horror and unease, the massive gates behind them suddenly closed with a slam. Confused in the dark, Ray decided to use his dragon's eye to investigate, but Sir Kay was really gone. Even with the use of his formidable dragon's eye, he couldn't see traces of the guy. Given that he had the most extraordinary sense out of them all, it was safe to say that the others were confused as well. Sir Kay then reappeared behind them with a threatening presence. The scenario was right out of a horror movie. Sir Kay explained that from today onwards, they would be training in complete darkness. They would further their abilities while polishing their senses. They would do this until the day they became one with the darkness and turned it into their sharpest weapon. Gary chimed in with a question. He wanted to know if it was true that Black Belted Knights would be dispatched on assassination missions in the future. Kay admitted that all of them had the abilities that made them more suited to carry out assassination missions than others. That's why they were here. But Gary was bothered by that. He wanted to fight fair and square like the others. But they were all chosen because they were special compared to others. Kay assured him that if he wanted to fight fair and square, then he was free to do so. There was no need to feel worried. The knight then gave each of them a black strap with a screen resembling a watch. From today on, they would train to fight however they liked to fight. The screen displayed Ray's information, ranking, and training completion rate. He is currently ranked 300th in their batch. According to Sir Kay, the rankings would be renewed every day after practice. Students of the same grade can also challenge each other. If the lower-ranked student wins, it will take the place of the higher-ranked student. This, in turn, will net them more resources. Find rank 1. Beat rank 1. Easy profit. In their whole batch, there are about 300 students. That just means that Ray is at the bottom of the barrel. But Gary, on the other hand, is the undisputed rank 1. People have been trying to guess who the rank 1 was, and it turns out to be him. Dan celebrated the fact that he ranks first and third in their batch are his doormates. Sylvia, the rank 3, and Martha, at 89, reprimanded Dan for being shallow. As for Monk, he looks happy looking at his ranking on the screen. He's comfortably placed at rank 65 as of now, but he vows to continue working hard. 10 days later, Ray is just getting back from his solo shenanigans. He didn't get to hunt much today, but he's already so close to reaching 100 points for beginner beast crystals. As soon as he got into their room, he heard a loud argument inside. Monk and Gary are in a shouting match after Gary badmouthed their black belt special training, which Monk used to climb up to rank 50. Gary insisted that it was useless, and he can keep his rank 1 status without its help. This is the first time that they've seen the always docile Monk so agitated. Dan is also confused by this argument since he doesn't even know how the black belts train. It's true that Gary isn't good at stealth, assassination, and such, while Monk, on the other hand, has shown great talent for it. Gary's not exactly wrong either. He's better than Monk in all the basics, and even though Monk is becoming strong quickly, Gary's still stronger than him overall. Monk is angry that Gary kept on putting down and undermining all of his hard work like that. But Blondie is standing firm. Sylvia had to jump in to de-escalate the situation. She even asked Ray for help to stop the bickering. So to stop this argument, Ray suggested that they fight it out. And of course, Dan thinks that it's a great idea. With him fanning the flames, Monk agreed to have a rank battle. Gary is fine with the proposal to see if those skills Monk loves so much are useful in battle. Word of their fight quickly spread across the academy, given that Gary is the first ranker after all. Monk is not too bad himself as a black belt. Some smut morons, namely Sebastian, the youngest son of Delbert the Clown, also caught wind of the news, calling it a fight of country bumpkins from Rennie. Kyle did not miss the golden opportunity to open the bets for the fight of the top star Gary and the Dark Horse Monk. Dan was his first patron, betting 10 silver pieces on the rank 1 as if it weren't his friends that are fighting. But even Martha placed a bet on Monk for fun. Sylvia wants to know if Monk has a chance in Ray's opinion. Kyle not only manned the bets, but he will also take on the role of referee and hype man. Redhead Baldy is on that grind set. For real. Ray thinks that Gary has the edge in this fight too. Kyle started the count in anticipation of the match. As soon as the go signal was dropped, Monk charged with ferociousness. Gary is gifted and has great technique. He stands out among every student for sure. Meanwhile, Monk has worked harder than anyone else on special training. They are probably the greatest rivalry right now. The stage is set, and their duel is heating up. Out of nowhere, Monk unleashed a downward strike so forceful that it covered the arena with smoke. He did everything right, and he thinks that his attack definitely worked. Even the audience watched intently until the smoke cleared, and it became clear that Gary blocked the powerful attack. He warned Monk to just give up, given that he has no chance to win at all. Monk has definitely improved a lot, and Gary has to deal with him with utmost caution. But there's a big but. Ray and Sylvia were sure that Blondie will take the win because Monk just can't fill in the gap within their abilities in such a short time. The kid is persistent, but he's also growing frustrated and impatient with every strike blocked. Gary took this as an opening for his turn. In one clean dash and swing, he shattered Monk's wooden sword in half. In a real battle, this would undoubtedly spell a loss. The arena was silenced, and only the drop of the wooden blade could be heard. It's over, but Monk just cannot accept the result. Gary apologized, but this is it, and he believes that this is how it should be. Monk has other ideas, though. He firmly believes that it's not over yet. Ray was the only one that noticed a change of atmosphere surrounding him. With his splintered wooden sword surrounded by a peculiar force, the kid targeted Gary from the back. Their roommates yelled from the stands to stop the fight. The enhanced splintered blade came close to Gary's neck, and he felt that ominous feeling. I can say this with full confidence. Monk is tripping. Man. Someone grabbed that incoming attack with just bare hands, causing blood to drip down. Everyone watched in shock as everything happened so fast. Of course, Ray was the one who stepped up to the arena to stop the incoming splintered blade and pulled Monk out of his trance. Realizing what he had just almost done, Monk let go of the blade and apologized profusely. He was so fast just now that Sylvia could not even catch the movements, and yet Ray managed to get up there in just the blink of an eye. That was the more incomprehensible feat here. Monk repeatedly apologized to Gary and Ray for losing control of his emotions and acting rashly. If Ray had not stopped him, it would have been undoubtedly worse. But with the stoppage of the duel, the audience and bettors were confused as to who won the match. Kyle addressed the audience to calm everyone down. Since someone had stepped in, the results would not count, and everyone would get their money back. This did not go over well with the degenerate gamblers in the audience, as they started throwing things at the people in the arena. Kyle tried his best to solve the situation to no avail. It did not take too long for them to turn the blame for the stoppage onto Ray, calling him names and throwing dangerous stuff onto the stage. A stone hit him in the head, and it definitely looked like it hurt. In just a second, the audience turned on them as if they had done a horrible deed or something. Monk stepped up to protect everyone from the deranged audience, but the mess quickly spiraled out of control. It had nothing to do with the earlier match anymore. Ray just wanted to go with his head bleeding severely. The duel had already ended, but this rabid mob just wanted something to be angry about. Of course, Sebastian and his goon would not miss the chance to escalate the situation even further with a solid brick. Thankfully, someone saw that in the goon's hand and shot it off. It's good that Monk managed to stop the commotion from getting out of hand, but he also earned the anger of the goon. And it's not only that, even the smug Sebastian was annoyed that he did not get to be a horrible person today. The words red-haired freak continuously echoed inside Ray's mind. People who wanted him out, people who wished he shouldn't have been born, people who blamed every misfortune on him, and people who dubbed him a walking disaster and wished him death. He just does not know why things always end up like this for him. He hasn't done anything wrong to warrant this treatment from these filthy humans like this. Every insult dug deeper and deeper into his primal soul. Hearing those venomous words, it was almost as if he was being enveloped by a wave of toxic sludge. Curse, freak, die, trash, useless, idiot, fool, die already. Each word scratches his humanity away bit by bit. His inner dragon wants to come out and reverse the insults. Humans, they are the ones who should die. As a human, I say go for it. Before he could lose control, someone came onto the scene and demanded silence. It was Sir Winford, who strode through the deranged crowd, commanding respect. Ray has been bleeding a lot and needs to be healed immediately. Sir Winford will help him with that, but he refused and just asked if the knight needs him for something. Winford is here to inform Ray that his mother is here at the academy. This news was certainly out of Ray's expectations. She was received in one of the nicer rooms at the academy. Hearing the voice of her son calling her mom immediately caught her attention. Ray could not believe his eyes. It's really his mother. It has been a while since they have seen each other, and Ray has definitely grown up. Ray does not want to talk about himself. He wants to know if his pops got better since she's here now. But she just ripped the band-aid off and informed her son that his father is gone. But he's not dead yet. That's not what she meant. His dad left the house and the village. That should be impossible, though. He's been confined to his bed since he was infected, and now she's telling Ray that he left. Sir Winford already knew that this would happen, but he couldn't bring himself to tell Ray the truth about the plague of shadows. Those who are infected usually die within a year. Jack was a special case. But in the end, strong survivors end up becoming slaves of the shadows to spread the plague further. There has never been an exception to this sickness. She only learned that day how much Jack had fought against the plague of shadows in the past decade. Back in their house, she was woken up by a noise coming from the dining area. The familiar infected feet could be seen beside a bottle of ink. Jack had risen from being stuck in bed for the past decade to write a letter. He turned around to see and called his wife's name, Scarlet, after such a long time. Seeing her husband awake, she almost couldn't believe it, jumping on him with a big hug. But fate is crueler and more complicated than that. Jack thinks that he can't control it much longer. He wants her to kill him immediately. Even though it's hard and she can't bring herself to do it, she must kill him. The plague of shadows is starting to flare up and take over his entire being at a fast rate. He's losing his mental faculties, and Jack is slowly being taken over. When asked what was wrong, he started to transform into something far from human. Jack is turning into something dangerous at a rapid pace. She was left crying on the burning floor of their home as the remnants of Jack's mind continued to ask her to kill him. She's overtaken by grief and pain, unable to move an inch. Jack looks more like a monster rather than a husband and a father. He's just yelling for the fast and sweet release of death from his wife at this point. In the end, she just couldn't do it. Jack is her husband, and he's Ray's father after all. Clutching the letter Jack had left for their son, Scarlet knew she had to deliver it personally. Jack's regret for not being there during Ray's formative years was palpable. The moment he and Scarlet laid eyes on their son, they sensed something truly special. Jack, aware of Ray's acceptance into the Mega Academy and his tendency to hide his strength, couldn't contain his pride. He longed to apologize for his absence and hoped Ray would live the life he desired. Gratitude welled up in Jack for having Ray as his son, and his love for the boy remained unwavering. As Ray absorbed the letter's words, a torrent of emotions swept over him. From witnessing the darkest aspects of humanity earlier to feeling the immense love from his father, he made a solemn vow to find a way to save his dad, no matter the obstacles that lay ahead. Ray went back to the dorm room to process his emotions first. His mother decided to find his father for now. She would look for him no matter what he becomes. Ray wanted to go with her, but she insisted on letting him take his own path as this would be what his father wanted. Scarlet is just so glad that she got to see her boy again after a long time. She reassured him with a tight hug and a reminder that he should just focus on what he should do. It has been a decade, and he feels like he has not done anything. He has not improved in the slightest, and he has never felt more human. He could not take revenge for his race, nor protect those he holds dear. Right now, everything just sucks. He's just like me. For real. Gary went in to check on him at the dorm room. He heard that Ray met his mother earlier and is already back in the room. Gary wanted to know if Ray's father is alright. Of course, the kid would clam up and not tell his friend what was happening. Gary knew this. He knows that something's definitely off. Jack's letter got blown by the wind and fell to the floor, catching Gary's attention. He took the paper, wondering what it could possibly be, but another person just went in the room. Dan took the letter from his hands. He thinks that since Gary was looking at it so intently, it must be a love letter from some fangirl or something. Dan was just goofing around, wanting to read some passionate love confession when the rest of their dormmates arrived. At that moment, they noticed that it was actually addressed to Ray. Everyone was surprised and confused by this, especially Sylvia. After reading the letter, Gary explained Ray's and his family's situation. They did not know that his father was infected by the plague of shadows, and that he had such a rough childhood. They decided that from now on, they will treat Ray better. Even just a little bit, everyone felt Ray's burdens. He went to cool off in the cafeteria after going through some extremely tough stuff for a kid. Sylvia and Martha went by his side to invite him to eat together out of nowhere. This is the extremely rare depressed Reese. Back in the dorms, something similar happened too. Someone had folded his clothes and blankets neatly on his bed. Dan and Ian showcased their terrible acting skills, insisting that Sylvia took care of everything for Ray right here. This string of nice things happening to him is just bizarre, and he's confused as to why these guys are acting differently. The very next day, he spotted Gary placing some freshly picked lilies on his bedside. Gary thought that seeing freshly picked flowers would help brighten things around the dorm. A look of visible disgust appeared on Ray's face while he considered that Blondie might have fallen in love with him. Ray wanted to ask us for a while. He's been noticing a shift in how his dorm mates treat him. Something is definitely up. Gary then confessed that he accidentally saw the letter. He apologized for treading on his friend's privacy, knowing that he shouldn't have looked at all. Gary also did not tell the others to come and look together, but it already happened. Blondie admits that it's his fault that everyone found out, and he's sorry. Instead of being angry, Ray had a genuine smile on his face in a while. His dorm mates are the best. As the two were having their bro moment, someone came rushing to the door as if it were a life and death emergency. They are carrying a severely injured monk, barely hanging on. Everyone is stressed and worried for the kid. It turns out that this was Sebastian's doing. He provoked Monk into getting into a ranked battle with him. Typically, ranked battles should end immediately once one side surrenders. Monk should not have gotten hurt to this extent. According to them, Monk had already passed out and he hadn't had the chance to surrender yet. But the brat did not stop, and he kept on beating poor Monk up. Everyone saw that the beating was definitely on purpose. With his last remaining energy at the moment, Monk weakly called out to Ray. Due to his state, he apologized for not being able to help Ray with his bed for the next few days. Seeing Monk be this considerate boy while under pain made Ray snap. The kid's limbs are fractured, and they urgently need a doctor. Without saying a word, Ray turned around and headed for the door. He's going to get some much-needed revenge for what that rat brat did to Monk. Gary chased after him to urge him not to be rash in how he would approach this issue. Gary also wants to get back at them for Monk, but it's complicated. Ray, on the other hand, believes in an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. They need to tread carefully because Sebastian is from House Delbert. He's the youngest son of the fraud clown, Sir Delbert, so they can't carelessly get on his bad side. Ray could not care less. Knowing that the guy started it all, he should also pay for his actions. But this is not the brat's first time doing something like this. He's practically untouchable in this academy. The worst case scenario is Ray might get expelled for this, but Ray assured them that he's not that dumb. He'll go through the proper channels and beat the guy in an official ranked battle. Bro is about to make the biggest rank jump ever. Gary and Sylvia are still extremely worried for Ray, though. We see the training grounds of the white belts, and it's vastly different from the black belts. Sebastian is roaming the grounds like it's his own backyard, while the other students are diligently sparring. Ray made his way to the site, and the scrubs immediately barred him from entering with extreme prejudice. He ignored these lackeys and asked where Sebastian is. Their boss never talked about having a red-haired friend before, so Ray wasn't permitted entry. Ray does not give a flying freak, though finally, Eric, Sebastian's #1 fanboy, noticed what's going on. The nooblings informed the #1 glazer that Ray is looking for their boss. Of course, this guy would be extremely rude while talking about manners. He's angry that somebody is interrupting their training as if they're good or something. This guy is yapping and yapping even though Ray couldn't care less about whatever he was talking about. Amused, Sebas came forward and introduced himself, asking what Ray needs from him. Seeing that he's wearing a black belt, Sebas correctly assumed that Ray is here for his friend. That makes things faster. There would be no need for small talk. He then shot him a direct invite for a battle request right there and then. Seeing his rank on the screen, everyone around just laughed, and even Sebas just dismissed the invite. This smug brat was convinced that it's not going to be much of a fight, seeing that Ray is miles lower than him in rankings. Sebas initially thought that Monk was strong, but he easily pummeled him to a pulp. Sebas gave a blatantly foaming apology for hurting Monk. He reasoned that the kid lost badly because of the natural gap between peasants and his kind. He said that he did not want that to happen again, so he disrespectfully shooed Ray away like a bug. But it seems like his #1 henchman has another idea. Sebas might not stoop down to Ray's level for a fight, but he would not mind doing so. This Eric kid is currently ranked 9th in their batch, so if Ray can fight and beat him, other people might be interested in a fight. Of course, this guy would need his brat boss's approval before proposing a proper duel. Sebas doesn't even care, so they can go ahead. Ray wanted to know if he can fight Sebas if he wins against this hot-headed mini-boss. The brat is not promising anything, but they can talk after a win. The surrounding white belts celebrated, seeing another fight again. People come for challenges every day in this side of the academy. Ray confidently gave Eric the first move to come at him. He has not even unsheathed his sword or anything like that. Eric wants to use this moment as a chance for him to show off his stuff. He wants to use the thing that Sebas taught him. Brat Boss is watching on the side with an amused expression as he expects his goon to bully a little kid. Eric is coming in full swing with an intent to deal massive amounts of damage. He tried to unleash a sharp stab. Ray just sidestepped his move like it was nothing. This kid was already shocked from that exchange alone, as if dodging that flimsy attack was not the easiest thing in the world. But it's not over yet. He's not giving up. He swung downwards in multiple angles, daring Ray to dodge it, and he did. A chop upwards was easily sidestepped to the right, and a wide swing was negated by a lean back with eyes closed. This kid just has ultra instinct. This is the fastest that Eric can attack, and he's still getting shut down at every angle. And just as he was falling into despair, Ray gave his system a restart with a single punch to the face. Eric lost his grip on his sword, and maybe in reality as well, as he flew to the wall of the training facility. Unconscious and humiliated, Goon number 1 quivered on the ground. Now that he's dealt with number 9, sending him to the infirmary, he asked Sebas if he's qualified enough to fight now. But this brat is still not sold on the idea. He wants to know what he will get in return if they fight. That was easy. Ray pulled out and put up 2 intermediate beast crystals on the line to raise the stakes. Even for the likes of this rich brat, intermediate beast crystals are still a luxury, but Sebas is worried that this might be dirty goods obtained from something shady. Ray used the excuse that his parents are adventurers, and they left these crystals for him. The rat brat can still take these crystals from him while he hasn't used them for equipment. Sebas finally accepted the challenge, but he has another condition. He wants this ranked battle to be held in public for all to see. That is what Ray wanted in the first place. Sebas wanted to show everyone that he did not take the crystals by force or something. They went to the arena, and it did not take too long for the audience to pour into the stands to watch the match. Kyle is back with his trusty coin box for the bets, worried about Ray going up against the second-ranked guy in their batch. He thinks that Ray is just doing this to earn a quick buck by selling the match or something. Kyle would be happy if Ray even manages to give the brat a nosebleed at the very least. He then went to do his gig, riling up the crowd to bet on the upcoming match. Even Ray's roommates are not showing too much confidence in his chance of success in this fight, except Sylvia. Dan teased her that she's only thinking like that because love makes people blind. Sylvia insisted that it's not the point, people are just blind if they can't see how strong Ray really is. Gary is on the same boat, instead of worrying if Ray would win. He's more worried about the blowback from that clown Delbert after the match. Sebas opened with a speech. The children of knights will become knights, and the children of farmers will become farmers. He firmly believes that no one can surpass the boundary of class. He thinks that Ray just became a little more confident after beating his goon, but he wants to show the difference between the master and the number 2 in this fight. They've only just started, and this guy is already nagging Ray nonstop. They both took their positions, and Sebas is sporting that signature smug and overly confident smile. Like and subscribe to see some rich brat beatdown.